The plan gave the British 1st Airborne Division 48 hours to hold the bridge at Arnhem. The ground forces never arrived. The division held for 9 days. Of the 10,000 men who landed, 1,400 were killed, 6,000 were taken prisoner, and 2,498 crossed back over the Rhine in the dark. The rest stayed. You are 21 years old and you are from Norwich in Norfolk, where your father keeps a hardware shop on Magdalen Street that sells nails and hinges and rope, and the kind of paint that takes 2 coats to cover anything properly. The thing you know best before all of this is the smell of that shop, linseed oil and sawdust and cold iron, the smell of things being built or fixed and not the other way around. You are a private in the 1st Battalion, the Border Regiment, 1st Airborne Division. In 2 hours you will step out of a Dakota at 500 feet above the Dutch countryside and descend onto a dropping zone 8 miles west of a town called Arnhem, which has a bridge over the Rhine that needs to be held until XXX Corps arrives from the south. Your company commander, Major Doby, told the platoon this morning that the German forces in the Arnhem area were a spent force. Elderly reservists, rear echelon units, nothing that would give a well-trained airborne division any serious difficulty. He said XXX Corps would link up within 48 hours. He said this would be the operation that ended the war before Christmas. You wrote this down in the small notebook you keep in your left breast pocket, the one your mother gave you before you deployed the first time, in 1942, because she said a man should write things down so he remembers them correctly later. You have been writing things down for 2 years. You eat an apple on the walk to the aircraft. You put the core in your pocket because there is nowhere else to put it. The Dakota smells of fuel. The men around you smell of the breakfast they ate at 0600, eggs and sausage, the kind of breakfast that gets served before something significant. You look at the flat gray of the North Sea below and then the flat green of the Netherlands and you think about 48 hours, which is specific enough to feel real, which is not the same as being real. The drop goes cleanly. 10,000 men, gliders, jeeps, artillery, the machinery of an operation that required months to assemble descending onto Dutch farmland in the September afternoon. The problem is the 8 miles. The briefing did not say that the 9th and 10th SS Panzer Divisions were resting and refitting in Arnhem, 6,000 men with armor and artillery, because the intelligence that placed them somewhere else was wrong in the way intelligence is sometimes catastrophically wrong. Completely, and at exactly the wrong moment. You do not know this yet. You know the 8-mile march is taking longer than it should because the roads are being contested by men who do not behave like elderly reservists. The fire is accurate and disciplined and coming from people who have been soldiers longer than you have. By nightfall, only 1 battalion, Lieutenant Colonel Frost's 2nd, reaches the north end of the bridge. 740 men. Your battalion stops 2 miles short and digs in on the edge of the town in a garden behind a house on a street whose name you never learn. The garden has a rose bed along the south wall. The flowers past their season, the hip red and heavy on the stems. The radio cannot reach XXX Corps. The sets the division brought operate on frequencies incompatible with the ground forces equipment, a coordination failure so complete it will not be fully understood for weeks. The operators adjust and retune and the static returns the same. Nothing it has been returning since the drop. You wait in the garden. The sounds from the bridge are 2 miles east. The sounds from the dropping zone are 8 miles west. You are between them with a rifle and 60 rounds and a radio that cannot reach either end. Frost's battalion at the bridge holds for 4 days. 740 men against SS armor and infantry. They hold the north end of the Arnhem Bridge against Panzer Grenadiers and armored cars and artillery while the rest of the division fights through the town trying to reach them and does not reach them. By the morning of September 21st, there is nothing left of Frost's battalion to hold with. The survivors are taken prisoner and the bridge passes back to the Germans. 4 days. The division pulls back into a perimeter around the village of Oosterbeek. 3 kilometers west of the bridge, the perimeter on September 22nd is approximately 900 meters across, at its widest. There are perhaps 300-500 men inside it. You are in a house on the western edge of the perimeter. The family who lived here left their photographs on the mantelpiece in the front room. A husband and wife and 2 children, a boy perhaps 8 years old and a girl perhaps 5, photographed in a garden in summer. You have been in this room for 2 days. You have looked at the photograph without deciding to look at it more times than you can count. The ammunition situation on September 22nd is such that your section has been told to fire only at confirmed targets. Your section has 94 rounds between 7 men. The man in the next room has a Bren gun with 2 magazines remaining. The mortar team in the garden exhausted their bombs on the 21st and are now carrying rifles taken from men who no longer need them. Outside, on the road, an SS tank has been moving back and forth along the perimeter for 3 hours. You have learned its engine. Note the way you learn any recurring sound in 5 days, by its variations, by what those variations mean. You know the difference now between a tank moving along a road and a tank that has stopped and is considering an angle. The tank stops, it considers, then it fires at the house next door, and the house next door becomes something else, and the dust comes through your window and settles on the mantelpiece and on the photograph and on the 7 men in the room who are still here. You look at the boy in the photograph. He is 8 years old, and it is summer in the picture and there are no shadows because the sun is directly overhead. You pick up your rifle and you count the rounds you have left, which is 11, and you wait for the tank to move again. On the morning of the 6th day you understand something that has been true for longer than you have understood it, which is that XXX Corps is not coming, or not coming in time, which for the purposes of the next few hours is the same thing. The radio operator in the room at the back of the house has been transmitting since 0530. You can hear the rhythm of it through the wall, the particular cadence of a man repeating the same information at regular intervals, patient in the way that is the last thing left after everything else is used up. The messages are going through, but what is accurate at 0700 is no longer accurate by the time it reaches anyone who can act on it. You eat the last of your rations, a tin of processed meat and 2 biscuits. You eat it slowly. There is nothing after this. The house shudders when the mortar rounds come in on the street outside. The rounds have been coming at approximately 12-minute intervals since dawn, and you have synchronized yourself to them without deciding to. The way you synchronized yourself to the factory on Magdalen Street when you were a boy. The shift changes at 7 and at 3, the delivery lorries on Tuesday and Thursday, the rhythms of things that repeat until they stop. The SS are inside the perimeter on the north side now. The perimeter has shrunk from 900 meters across to something closer to 600, and there are men from 4 different battalions mixed together in the buildings along the western edge. Nobody is entirely certain who is commanding what. Only that the western edge is the western edge and it needs to be held. You take out your notebook. You do not write anything. You hold it in both hands and you look at the photograph on the mantelpiece and you think about the boy in the picture who is 8 years old in a summer garden, and you think about the house next door which is no longer a house. And you think about the 48 hours that Major Doby described at the briefing as the duration of this operation and which became 6 days this morning without any formal announcement. Outside, the tank comes back. You put the notebook in your pocket. You pick up your rifle. You count 11 rounds. The tank moves along the road and the house shudders and the dust settles again on everything and you are still here. The order to withdraw comes on the evening of September 25th. Operation Berlin. The men who can walk will make their way south through the dark to the riverbank and cross the Rhine in boats. The wounded who cannot walk will stay. The Dutch families in the cellars around the perimeter, the ones who have been passing water through ground floor windows to the wounded for 6 days, some of them have agreed to hide men who cannot be moved. This is not a small thing to agree to. You reach the riverbank at 1:45. The river is 100 meters wide, and the Germans are firing along it, and the rain is heavy and the men in the water ahead of you are paddling with rifle butts because there are not enough paddles. The boat in front of yours has 4 men in it and arrives on the south bank with 3. You reach the south bank at 02:30. You sit on the riverbank in the rain. 398 men make it across. Of the 10,000 who landed 9 days ago, those are the ones who come back. The others are in prisoner of war columns moving east, or in the cellars of Dutch houses, or in the town itself in ways the rain is covering over now, in the way rain covers everything eventually. The man next to you is a signaller from a different battalion whose name you do not ask. You sit together for a while. Neither of you says anything because there is nothing that needs saying that the rain is not already saying. You reach into your left breast pocket. The notebook is wet. The pages have absorbed 6 days and a river crossing and the rain and they are soft now. And when you open it, the ink has spread in most places into something that is still readable if you already know what it says. You already know what it says. Major Doby said XXX Corps would link up within 48 hours. He said this would be the operation that ended the war before Christmas. You close the notebook. You put it back in your pocket. Somewhere in Norwich, on Magdalen Street, the hardware shop is either open or it is not. The smell of linseed oil and sawdust is either in the air or it is not. Your father is either at the counter cutting rope to length or he is not, and none of these things can be confirmed from the south bank of the Rhine in the rain and the dark. The notebook in your pocket is wet and the apple core from 9 days ago is still in there with it. You did not think to throw it away. You sit in the rain with what you have.